Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. So we are from Group 2. Let me introduce first myself. My name is Chloe Grace R. Pacanya, and our discussions for today is about the origin and history of globalization. So in the previous group, their discussion answered the question, what is globalizations, right? And now, in our group, our discussion answered the question, where did globalization started? So, anyone, do you have an idea where did globalization started? Anyone? So, okay, before we understand globalizations today, it is important to know where it came from or where did it started. So, there is no single date or event that marks the beginning of globalizations. There is no exact date, month, or year that says or that explains the beginning of globalizations. But instead, different scholars have different explanations about when and how globalization started. According to Aldama 2021, there are five perspectives that explains the origin of globalizations, and these are the hardwired, the cycles, epoch, events, broader, more research changes. So, but before we continue to discuss these five perspectives, I have a question to you guys. It is a very simple. Have you ever wondered why people have always wanted to travel, traded, or working with other countries? So, anyone, do you have an idea why people have always wanted to travel, to trade, or working in abroad? Anyone? So yes, that's correct. So in this perspective, in this hardware perspective, according to Nayan Chanda 2007, it is because of our basic human need to make our lives better that made globalization possible. So in the other words, the term hardware means that something is naturally built into us. In this perspective, globalization is considered hardwired because humans naturally have the desire to connect with other people, explore new places, exchange things, and find ways to improve their lives. So what it doesn't mean? Globalizations did not suddenly begin because of the internet, the airplanes, or the modern technology. Long before this was already existed, people were already moving from one place to another, trading goods, spreading beliefs, exploring unfamiliar places, and competing or fighting for land and resources. And so we can see this idea as far back as the earliest history of humans. So according to Nayan Chanda, our ancestors migrated from Africa and gradually spread to different parts of the world. So people did not simply stay in one location forever. They moved because they were looking for things such as the food, safety, land, resources, and better places to live.
Good day, everyone. For my part, I will be discussing the cycles and epochs of globalization. First, let's talk about cycles. The cycles perspective proposed by Schulte in 2005 explains that globalization is not something that happened only once. Instead, it happens through different cycle or stage throughout history. So this means that globalization has been developing and changing over time. It can grow stronger because of major events, technology, trade, migrations, and interactions between different countries and cultures. For example, in the past, people became connected through religion, trade, exploration, and today globalization is much faster because of the internet, social media, transportation, and international businesses. So, the main idea of cycles perspective is that globalization is a continuous process that changing and develops over time. And now, let's move on the epochs. The word epochs means a specific period or stage in history that is marked by important events or changes. According to Redzer 2005, based on Thurborn 2000, globalization can be understood through six major epochs or historical period. And now, Let's move on the epochs. The word epochs means a specific period or stage in history that is marked by important events or changes. According to Redzer 2005, based on Thurborn 2000, globalization can be understood through six major epochs or historical periods. The first is globalization of religion. Religion was one of the earliest ways people became connected. Religious belief and practices spread from one place to another through missionaries, travelers, and migrations. So, for example, Christianity spread to the Philippines through Spanish missionaries during the Spanish period. So, the second is European colonial conquest. European countries explored and conquered territories in different parts of the world. So, this created connected through trade, cultures, politics, and resources. For example, Spain colonized the Philippines, which influenced our religion, cultures, language, and government. So the third is intra-European wars. This refers to wars conflict between European countries. These conflicts also affected other parts of the world, especially their colonies. For example, European colonies could be affected by the wars because they were sometimes used for resources, soldiers, or strategic supports. And the fourth is European imperialism. During this period, European power expanded their political and economic influence over areas in Asia, Africa, and other religions. So, for example, European countries controlled territories in Africa and used their natural resources and labor for economic purposes. And the fifth is post-World War II. So after the World War II, countries became more connected through international cooperation, trade organizations, and improved communication and transportation. For example, the creation of the United Nations or UN encourages countries cooperate on international issues such as peace and security. And lastly, we have the post-Cold War epoch. After the Cold War, globalization became much faster, and technology, transportation, communication, and international businesses. For example, today we can communicate with people from different countries instantly through messengers, Zoom, TikToks, and other social media platforms. We can also buy products from businesses located in other countries. So, to summarize, the cycles tells us that globalization is a continuous process that develops through different stages, while epochs help us understand the different historical periods that contribute to globalization. And overall, globalization did not happen suddenly. It developed gradually through different events and periods, and making countries, cultures, economies, and people more connected with one another. And that's all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. I am Major Yalcazar, a second year PSPA. Welcome to my part of discussion. Now let's proceed the events are able to consider as possible starting points of globalization. A specific historical events are considered as possible starting points because they help to connect different parts of the world through conquest, exploration, travel, trade, and movement of people and ideas. In our slide, we have important historical events that contribute global connection. First is Roman Congress. According to the Gibbon in 1998, Roman Congress that happened countries before Christ may have the marked origin of globalization. The Roman Empire expanded into the different territories and connected these areas through trade and transportation, political control, and cultural exchange. Because of this was significant because this route made it easier to European and Asia. Traders and exchange goods in simple terms voyage and help to strain trade and connection different Europe and Americans. So unlike Columbus, he's connected Europe and Americans, and Vasco da Gama helped to strengthen maritime connections between Europe and Americans. We have a Ferdinand Magellan expedition. His expedition is created the first circumnavigation of the world, which completed in 1592. Columbiation means traveling to the way around the earth. Expedition demonstrated the possibility connecting distant part of the world through sea travel and also contribute a greater knowledge and the world geography and strength connections between different religions. The third event is Christopher Columbus voyage in 1492. This voyage is important historical of globalization because of it connected Europe and Americans. This connection led increased movement of people, goods, plants, animals, and ideas between two religions. So Columbus voyage is become important event in the expansion of connection different parts of the world. So this shows how exploration could create new connection between previous separated religions. And the fourth event is Vasco da Gama voyage in 1498. Vasco da Gama reached India and by sea, and Europe physical voyage opened important maritime Europe between Europe and Asia. This was significant because this route made it easier to European and Asia. More connected people were able to travel goods and exchange ideas cultures. So even during the ancient time, we had expansion of empire code ready to create connections and between different religions. And the second event is Genghis Khan expansion during the 13th century. Genghis Khan expanded his empire to across a large part of Asia into the Eastern Europe. In his turn, his expansion connected Europe with the other religions through expansion. As these territories became connected and greater movement, people, goods, and ideas between different parts of areas. Therefore, Genghis Khan expansion is considered significant because of it created connection across a large of geographic area. So, these five events show Congress expansion, exploration, trade, routes gradually and connected different parts of the world. These historical develops help lay that foundation for the globalization we have experienced today. Now, let's proceed to the next reporter. Bye-bye.
Globalization we know today did not just happen overnight. So now we'll talk about the broader, more recent changes. It refers to a large-scale development that happened in the second half of 20th century and affected many countries around the world. And these changes increased the global connections in trade, communications, technology, and international relations. And according to scholars, there are three notable changes. And these are major developments helped create the modern globalization that we experience today. First major change is the emergence of the United States as the global power or the post or fall of World War II. So after the World War II, many countries were weakened by the war. However, the United States became the strongest country economically and militarily. And because of its powers, American products, businesses, culture, movies, and ideas spread around the world. For example, Hollywood movies, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and other American brands that became popular in many countries, including the Philippines. And this was important to globalization because it increased the spread of American culture, products, and influence across the different parts of the world. So the second major change is the rise of multinational corporation, also known as MNCs. So these are the companies that operate in more than one country, and instead of doing business only in their home country, they expand by building factories, offices, and stores in different countries around the world. So for example is McDonald's. It is started in the United States, but it has many branches in countries around the world, including the Philippines. So McDonald's has hundreds of branches in the Philippines. The third major change is the demise or the fall of Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. But first, what is Soviet Union and Cold War? So Soviet Union is a large communist countries made up of several republics, while the Cold War is a long period of rivalry between United States and Soviet Union. So, when the Soviet Union collapsed, many countries became more open to international trade, communication, and cooperation, and this allowed the globalization to spread more quickly around the world. So a simple example for this is that more countries started trading with one another, and people were able to travel, work, and do business internationally easily. The rise of United States as a global power and the growth of multinational corporation and the fall of Soviet Union helped accelerate globalization. So these major developments made countries more connected through trade, business, technology, communication, and cultural exchange.
First, let's define what is global demography. Demography is the statistical and scientific study of human populations. It looks at how groups of people change in size, in structure, and local over time. The field focuses on how population grow or shrink based on three main drivers: birth, death, and migration, or moving to new areas. Next, let's talk about demographic translation. This term refers to the shift from high birth and death rates to low birth and death rates. In simple words, demographic translation is a major change in a population over time. In the past, many babies were born, but many people also died because healthcare was not very advanced. Therefore, both birth rates and death rates were very high. However, as healthcare, medicine, hospitals, and living conditions improved, fewer people died and fewer people living longer. Eventually, families also began having fewer children. As a result, both birth rates and death rates became lower. This entire shift was called demographic translation. This process originally began in Europe during the mid to late 1700s and later spread to the rest of the world. The second part of our topic is population changes. Population changes refers to how number and conditions of people in a country alter over time. One important change to note is declining mortality. This simply means that fewer people are dying. Fewer people are dying today because we now have better hospitals, medicine, doctors, clean water, food, and improved sanitation. These advancements help people survive illnesses that used to be fatal in the past. Because fewer people are dying early, people are living longer. This is known as an increased life expectancy. Life expectancy means the average number of years a person is expected to live. For example, if a people in a country used to live at age 50 but now can live to age 70 or 80, their life expectancy has increased. Another major changes is declining fertility. Declining fertility means that families are having fewer children. For example, in the past, a typical family might have had 6 or 7 children. But today, a family may choose to have only 1, 2, or 3 children. When many families choose to have fewer children, fewer babies are born overall. So the population will eventually grow more slowly. Furthermore, after World War II, many developing countries experienced rapid population growth. This happened because many babies were still being born, but fewer babies
and children were dying because healthcare and medicine improved. As a result, more children survived, and because many babies were still being born, the population grew very quickly. And the last part is the dependency ratio. The dependency ratio compares the number of dependents in a society to its working age population. Dependents include children and older adults. They are classified as dependents because children usually do not have jobs yet, and older adults are often retired and no longer working. On the other hand, the working age population refers to the people who are old enough and able to work to earn a living. This active workforce helps support both children and the elderly. For example, if two parents have 5 children, those parents have a large number of children to support. This creates a higher dependency ratio because more people rely on the working age population. Countries like India and the Philippines currently have higher dependency ratios because of higher fertility rates, meaning more children are being born. When a population has high percentage of children, more people need support from working age adults. However, today, dependency ratio are shifting globally because people are living longer and fewer babies are being born in some countries. There are now fewer children but significantly more older adults. Since both children and the elderly are dependents, the overall dependency ratio changes. In simple terms, the dependency ratios show how many people in a society need support compared to the number of people who can actually work and provide that support.
And now, let's talk about global migration. So, what is global migration? So, global migration is the movement of people from one country to another for different reasons. And according to Bauma 1998, migrants can be classified as vagabonds and tourists. So let's talk about the types of migrations: the vagabonds, the tourists, refugees, flee, and asylum. So first, the vagabonds. What is vagabonds? So these types of migrations that vagabonds migrate because they have no choice. They are forced to leave their home countries because of the poverty, in unemployment, conflict, or unsafe living conditions. For example, a person who leave their country because there are no jobs. Many Filipinos now are working abroad, right, to provide a better future of their family. So they are forced to leave their families, to leave this country because of the poverty. So they need to go to the another country to provide the needs of their families, to support the needs of their family. So that is the vagabonds. So next is the tourist migrant. So they migrate because they want to and they can afford to travel. For example, a family visiting Japan for vacation, or a student studying abroad because they have enough financial resources can be considered tourist in this. So this is considered as a tourist. So another important group of migrants are the refugees. So according to Haddad 2003, refugees are people who are forced to leave their country because of war, violence, persecutions, or threats to their safety. For example, families escaping armed conflict to seek protections in another country. So these are refugees in. So another example is what happened. The war happened in the Ukraine, between Ukraine and Iran. So the people there was forced to leave their home country for their safety. So that's the refugee flee. The people was forced to leave their country, for their safety. So another is the asylum seeker. So is someone who has already left their country and is asking another country to recognize them as a refugee and provide legal protections. So don't be confused, guys, between the vagabonds and refugees. The difference between them is that vagabond describes people who are compelled to move because of limited choices or opportunities, while on the other hand, refugees is physically flee their country because of serious threats such as war, persecutions, or violence. So that's the difference between them. So another type of migration is the labor migration. So according to CRIT's 2008, labor migrations happen when people move to another country to find employment. So people migrate because of push factors and pull factors. So what is push and pull factors? Rather pull factors. So push factors are problems that force people to leave their countries includes because of the unemployment, poverty, war, political instability, and natural disasters. So this is the negative one. So while on the other hand, pull factors attracts people to another country. So these factors is the sana all factors. Okay, this includes better salaries, more jobs opportunities, better education, safer environments, and better healthcare. So, but on the other hand, there is also restrictions on migrations. Although globalizations allow people to move more easily, migration is still controlled by governments. So, according to Champignon 2005, countries regulate migrations to protect their labor force and national interests. So, government also considered national security and public safety. For example, countries require passports, visas, immigrations, documents before allowing people to enter. So some countries are also border security to prevent illegal immigrations and terrorism as discussed by Moses 2006. And now let's move on to the effects of migration. Migration has both positive and negative effects. So first, the positive effects. Migration helps labor shortages. They contribute to economic growth. Remittances improve the lives of families and support the home country's economy, according to Economist 2007 and Malkin 2007. Um, According to Malkin 2007, the Philippines is one of the world's leading recipients of remittances. For example, many overseas Filipino workers or OFWs send money home to pay for food, education, healthcare, and housing. Migration also contributes to economic growth in both the home country and the destination country. So while in the negative effect, brain drain or loss of workers, illegal immigration, social and political tension. So migration creates also challenges. These are the effects of migrations, both positive and negative effects. And now let's talk about the last part of our topic, the diaspora. So what is diaspora? Refers to the migrant communities living outside their homeland while maintaining connections with it, according to Gilroy 1993. So diaspora and globalizations are closely connected. So another important concept is diaspora, and according to Paul Gilroy 1993, diaspora refers to migrant communities living outside their homeland while maintaining their culture, traditions, and relationships with their country of origin. So for example, many Filipinos in the United States, Canada, or in the Middle East continue celebrating Filipino festivals, speaking Filipino language, and supporting their families back home. So like mga even though they are not in their home country or in the Philippines, but they still but they still use their cultures in the other country. They still cooking Filipino foods. They still using their language, their own language, the Bisaya, Filipino, Tagalog. They still celebrating fiestas. So that's what mean about diaspora. So this shows that migrations connects different societies while preserving cultural identity. And that's the end of our discussions about the origin and history of globalizations. And we hope that you have something learned from our discussions. Thank you.